Hello everybody, my name's Kate Milner and welcome to my studio where I do all my writing books and drawing pictures. It's a terrible mess, so I'm glad you can't see any more than that little bit of it. Now, a while ago, the very wonderful people of Manchester Libraries asked me to come and have a talk to you about my book, It's a No Money Day. I was really looking forward to it actually, so it's a shame we can't do it because of the virus, but at least I can talk to you on the computer and maybe one day I can actually come and have a good look at you, which is something I'd be very interested in doing. So here's my book and I'm going to ask you lots of questions as we go through. Let's see what you think. So maybe you think that picture books are just for little kids. I don't agree with that. I think they're for little kids, they're for big kids, they're for grown-ups. And I'm going to try and prove that to you by asking you to think about the pictures and what the pictures are telling you. So, if I was there in the real world, I'd be asking you lots of questions and I'd hope to see lots of hands up. So let's do that now as well, shall we? So my first question to you is, what do you think these two people feel about each other? Anybody got any ideas? Yes, I think they feel they care about each other. They're very loving with each other. They feel happy and safe together. So we know that about their relationship. Here's another question. What kind of space do you think they live in? I haven't drawn a room here or a house, but can you make any guesses about what it feels like to be in that space? Anybody, any ideas? Put your hand up if you have. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. It's quite a small, cramped space, isn't it? Because if it isn't, why have they got clothes hung about above the bed? Why is the mum's work clothes hung there? It makes them feel quite cramped and closed in together, doesn't it? And something else I've done to make you feel that. Can you see that blue? And it kind of shuts them in, doesn't it? It's all around them to make them feel quite cramped in. So here we are on the second spread of the book. They're looking for something to eat and they've opened the cupboards and there really isn't much there, is there? So I've got one question for you here. Where are we looking at them from? If you remember the picture in the last page, we were looking at them kind of from the end of the bed or above the bed. Where are we now, do you think? It's not a very easy question to answer, is it? So the little girl here says there's no more cereal, so I have the last piece of toast. Luckily, Mum isn't hungry. Now, here's a question for you. Do you believe her? Do you think Mum does want some breakfast or not? I think if you're a little kid, you just take what Mum says for granted. But if you're a bit older, do you think that maybe Mum might be saying that so that the little girl doesn't feel bad about eating the last piece of bread they've got? Maybe that could be right. So there's a couple of other things I'd like you to think about here. The mum is wearing a kind of uniform, isn't she, on her top? It's got that pink braiding against the blue. And I was thinking of her as being a carer. My own mum is a very, very old lady and she's not very well and she needs carers to come and help look after her and it's a difficult job. You know when we're outside on a Thursday, 8 o'clock, and we're all clapping like crazy for the nurses and the doctors and the carers. So I was thinking that's the job she does. Also, I want you to have a look at the things that are on the mantelpiece there. There's 4 containers, aren't there? There's an egg cup and the thing like a jam jar and a couple of other things. Have a look at those and think what they might be for. Now we've got a better look at those containers, haven't we? I think the mother finds it very, very difficult, even though she works long hours, to earn enough to pay for everything that she and her daughter needs. So she's trying to work out exactly and plan and budget to make sure, if she can, that she's got enough money. So here we are with our 4 containers. That one's got a picture of a bus on it. Maybe that's for travel. She can't do her work if she can't get to her work, can she? Here's a picture of a house. What do you think that might mean? I think it might mean rent, paying for the housing that they live in. And that one, what's that picture? I guess it's, if it's an apple, what might that be for? Anybody got any ideas? Exactly, for the food they need. Everybody needs to eat, don't they? And what about this one? Do you think that means to buy more light bulbs? Or does it mean something else? Has anybody got any ideas what that light bulb might be for? Yes, I think you're right. It's for the energy they need in the house, the electricity, so they can have light and they can charge up their phone and they can cook and all those things. What's going on this other side of the page? She says, I look after the everything else jar. Mum says that if it ever gets full, we can get a kitten. It doesn't look very full at the moment, does it? It looks really very empty. So here's another question for you. On this page, why do you think I've drawn those containers upside down or on their side? We kind of think if they're like that they're empty. There's no actual reason why they have to be empty if they're on their side, but that's how we tend to see it, isn't it? That they've been discarded because there's nothing left in them. So here the little girl is playing at home and she hasn't got any money to spend on anything, but she's able to use her imagination. And I was thinking it's perhaps a little bit being in lockdown. She can't do the fun things that most of us like to do, like going swimming or going to the cinema or going bowling, because she hasn't got any money. And perhaps you can sympathise with her because you haven't been able to do those things because you haven't been able to go out. It's kind of the same situation. So here they are, they can go out and they can look in shops or they can go to the park or museums or do anything that doesn't cost them any money. So you could say maybe they're a bit better off than you are at the moment. So there comes a time when they have to stop having fun and go and get in the queue to visit the food bank. And when I was drawing all these people, I was trying to think what it must feel like to have to queue up to ask somebody to give you some free food. I should think it must be quite embarrassing, and that's why I've drawn people perhaps not talking to each other, perhaps looking at their phone or trying to stay feeling dignified, even though it's really not a very nice thing to have to do. I wonder if you know what happens at a food bank. Well, let's get to the next spread and see. So now they're inside the food bank and the little girl says, Mum doesn't like going to the food bank, but I do. I can have biscuits and squash and tell the lady all about the kitten we might get. So you can see her here. She's eaten a biscuit and she's talking and talking. I think this little girl really is quite talkative. But behind her, the lady in the pink top is helping her mother choose things they might need. So there's some toilet roll and some tins of tomatoes and some jars of jam and some rice. Here's another question. Do you know where all the food and the groceries that are on the shelves of the food bank, do you know where it comes from? Put your hand up if you do. Well, if you said that the food comes from the bins that you get in the supermarkets, in Aldi and Tesco's and Sainsbury's and the others, where people can put food, then you were absolutely right and give yourself a pat on the back. And if you didn't say that, next time you go shopping with your mum or dad, then have a look out and you'll see that there by the door it says donations for food banks. And you can see in the picture that there's some boxes with food that's been given so it can be given to people who need it. Mum gets cross when I ask the lady if I can have my favourite cereal. The lady says she's sorry, but she can only give me what kind people give to the food bank. Here's quite a difficult question, but why do you think this mum, who's usually very nice to a little girl, why do you think she's got cross now? I don't know about you, but I think it's because she's embarrassed. She's embarrassed in front of the other grown-ups because she feels like her little girl is asking for too much. I have to tell you, quite often when grown-ups get cross, it's because they're embarrassed in front of other grown-ups. So here they are on the long walk home, and you might like to just ask yourself why you think they have to walk. But while they're going, they're daydreaming about what they'd like to buy if they had all the money in the world. That's something I do. I don't know about you. You can see that the mum is thinking about practical things. She'd like to have a car. She'd like to have a washing machine. She'd like to have nice warm coats for the winter for her and her daughter. And the little girl's thinking about other sorts of things. She's thinking about the kitten. She's thinking about a feast of cakes. And she's thinking perhaps a nice day out at a water park where she can just splash around and enjoy herself to her heart's content. And here they are back home at the end of the day, and they've had a nice meal and they're back in bed. And when you've had a nice meal, you always feel more cheerful, don't you? Well, I certainly do. It says, maybe one day me and Mum won't have to worry, but tonight, because of kind people, our tummies are full. And if you've ever encouraged your mum or dad to put something in one of those bins in the supermarket, you are one of the kind people who've helped them. And I would like to say a really big thank you for doing that. I'd also like to say thank you for listening to me while I tell you about my story. I'd like to say thank you for getting involved and putting your hand up and answering questions. And I would finally like to say a really big thank you to Manchester Libraries for asking me to do this. And I hope soon they can open their doors and welcome you in again, as I'm sure they want to.